So right, if you could feel what we feel now, you'd be a leader filled with might, 'cause we're awakened.
And now a word the Awakened Radio sponsors. In 1993, the Einstein College of Medicine patented a blood electrification device to clean the blood of bacteria and virus droplets. The device was just too cheap and effective and was not implemented into standard medical practice in hospitals. See where that patent has led to. Check out forcemagneticpulsar.com. That is pulsar, spelled with an ER, not AR. forcemagneticpulsar.com. Have you taken part in the prosperity game at the Awakened Radio Network? Visit our homepage, awakenedradio.net. Find out how you can win prizes just by exercising your money muscle. A $1 donation gets you in the drawing every month for prizes that will blow your mind. Check out the prosperity game here on the Awakened Radio Network, awakenedradio.net. Are you looking for a way to get your name in print? Well, we have an answer for you here at Awakened Radio Network. We are publishing Thrive Evolutionary Consciousness Magazine the 20th of every month. If you would like to submit an article, poetry, or artwork, please visit our website, awakenedradio.net. Look at the top where it says Thrive Evolutionary Consciousness Magazine. You will find information on how to submit an article, poetry, or artwork. There are also information there for you to advertise and get the word out in our magazine that reaches thousands of people globally at very affordable rates. Awakened Radio Network and Thrive Evolutionary Consciousness are working together with you for a win-win for everyone. Success is a lifestyle.
Welcome to Simply Conversations. This show airs every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. Each week, we have a new conversation with a guest who will share their story with us about how they've changed or healed their own life. Listen to our discussion and be inspired. This show is brought to you by simplyconversations.com. Feel free to take part in our chat room, ask questions, and talk with our guests. Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to Simply Conversation tonight. And I'm Rob Ragozzine, your host, author, and explorer. It's November 24th, 2013. Tonight, Dr. Stephen Fox will be my guest. He's a private practice clinical psychologist, author, and he has a deep interest in dreams and healing. And he's helped clients look at personal patterns, and he has a strong interest in the unconscious and subconscious and the work of psychologist Carl Jung. He's also experienced with attention deficit disorder in adults and children, and of course, dream interpretation. He incorporates Carl Jung's work into the work that he does, including shadow, archetypes, active imagination, and dream work. He says,
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Fox.
Hi, this is Dr. Fox. How are you doing?
How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Welcome to the show. Sorry for the problems with connecting with us.
That's okay.
Thanks for having the courage to come on and talk with me tonight. Let's talk about working with dreams and therapy. And my question is, do you recommend that people start therapy to work on important issues? Or can they start working on their dreams and find their way to working with you eventually?
Well, the interesting thing is dreams always use the current day residue. So basically, what's going on in their current life and the problems they're working on will show up in their dreams. Sometimes someone will come in and they will say they have a dream and they want to tell me what's been going on in their lives. And I often will say to them that I would prefer that they just tell me the dream without telling me what's going on, simply because I find that biases my interpretation too much. I would almost rather hear a long, detailed dream, if the person is talking honestly to me, because that will give me a very good idea of what's going on, usually.
So do you recommend they tell it to you in a dream in pieces or all at once?
Oh, it's best to have a whole dream. What sometimes someone will call me and they're interested in therapy, and I can start therapy, of course, without doing dreams. I typically do the first interview to get to know the person a bit, but my recommendation to them at the end will frequently be, why don't you keep track of your dreams as much as you can until we meet the next time, because therapy just goes faster with the dreams. It's sort of like the difference between someone telling you how a picture looks versus actually looking at the picture yourself.
Now, how long should therapy typically last if you're working on perhaps just one important issue? I tend to be very global in the way I think. I find that it seldom is just one issue. Usually there's several issues. Sometimes it can be just one issue. If someone is wanting to quit smoking or something like that. But a short round of therapy would be 5 to 8 sessions. The more usual, which is more generally beneficial, is somewhere between 20 and 30 sessions. So it could last up to a year if they're coming in once a week, or half a year.
Yeah, half a year. Yeah. That's what you find. The people that have really good outcomes, they've usually been in therapy for at least 6 months to a year, somewhere in there.
And before they come to you, is there any specific research they should do or read? I know you have your own book, but is there any specific reading they should do?
I have a favorite book. It's written by Robert Johnson. It's called Owning Your Own Shadow. And we all have a part of the personality called the shadow. And, we think of that as having the aggressive parts of ourselves and so forth. It's often the part that's creating a problem. But it's also usually the part that's going to change in therapy. If people change in therapy, it's usually because they've either put something back into their shadow or they've taken things out of their shadow that they didn't know were there. Like I say, we think of it as having the aggressive parts and stuff, but it also can contain parts that we're just not aware are there. If I decided not to become a priest, there's a priest in my shadow, for instance. But Robert Johnson's book is the best summary of the shadow that I've ever read. It was written in the 70s, I believe.
But there's also the good parts that we don't acknowledge about ourselves there too.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I focus on the shadow a lot, simply because we don't want anything to do with the shadow. Frequently in dreams, when you feel like something is chasing you, frequently that's your own shadow. And sometimes it's running after you, and it's trying to say, hey, I've got something here you might want to use, but we want nothing to do with the shadow, and so we reject it.
So we run away.
Exactly.
We run away, and it's trying to do something good for us, or at least helpful.
Exactly. Sometimes if I'm working with someone and they have a recurrent dream like that, this thing keeps chasing them, I've had some success getting people to program themselves before they go to sleep to turn around and face whatever is chasing them. And usually that helps resolve it. Carl Jung, he had a procedure. He called it active imagination. And basically, if you had something strange happen in your dream, or a character said something to you,
you can act it out.
Yes, that you try to redream the dream as much as you can, and then when you get to the point where you're with that character, you ask the character a question like, what do you want from me, or what are you doing in my dream? And frequently, it's sort of like writing a novel. At some point, the book starts to write itself, you know.
And do you think people are capable of working in this way without also being in therapy, at least at first?
I think it's hard, simply because, you know, Freud and Jung, they interpreted their own dreams, but you know, I think it's very hard. It's hard for myself to be objective on my own dreams. I frequently have to bounce it off somebody else, just because the biggest advantage for a dream interpreter is they're not the person that had the dream. You know.
So you have to have compassion for yourself and for the person that's interpreting the dream.
Oh, exactly. I think, you know, that's really kind of why I wrote my book, is in graduate school, in many ways, they never really explicitly taught us how to interpret a dream. What they did, more or less, was have us share a classroom with a professor who was pretty good at interpreting dreams, and then it was kind of hoped that we would get the drift of it by osmosis. A lot of dream books, you know, they give you a million symbols, and you're supposed to remember, you know, what goes with what. And I find that very cumbersome and very difficult. I more or less, with my book, I try to lay out 40 rules or guidelines, but I guess I would call them keys. 40 things that if you keep these in mind, it more or less describes a method of how to go about looking at dreams.
So there can be cultural differences, like a bathroom might mean different things for different cultures, but it generally means getting cleaned up if it's showing up in a dream, for instance, or a laundry room.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. You've been reading my book.
Yes, I've read your book.
I can tell. You know, after you've been interpreting dreams with someone, actually the way I got the rules was my clients kind of said it back to me. Because basically, they would start bringing in dreams after a while and say, well, I dreamt this, and this is what you were going to think. And, you know, they would always frequently be well within the ballpark, if not right on the mark, you know. But the cultural differences thing, yeah, that's very true. I guess it comes in more with the archetypes, which are patterns of thought that are thought to be handed down through different cultures. For instance, there's an archetype called the divine child, and in Caucasian culture, it's usually a little girl between the ages of 5 and 11, let's say, and she's usually blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and she represents our hopes and dreams of what's going to happen in the future.
Now, this shows up in books and movies today?
Actually, I think where it shows up is our obsession with blondes.
Okay.
I think it comes partially from that. In Hispanic cultures, what I've noticed, it seems to be dark-haired, brown-eyed little girls. And so, you see that cultural difference, and I'm sure it's
I haven't had enough that we accept. Then.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas the shadow might be someone has a darker skin color, no matter what our skin color shade is, perhaps.
Well, that's interesting too. I go out of my way. There is a chapter on color and what different colors mean or tend to mean, but when I got to the color black, I wanted to emphasize that dark-skinned people actually in dreams, that's an indication that more soul is being summoned. Okay? And I
creativity.
Yes, and I think it goes back to the beginning of time, actually. I think it's, we think man originated in Africa. And so if you're going back to archetypes that are buried deep in culture, you're going to get darker skinned people as represented. So I always, if there's a black person in a dream, I see that as a very positive and soulful thing. I mean, we even call it soul music, don't we?
Yes. It's a connection to our roots, it's a connection to ourselves. So it's all about connecting more deeply to ourselves.
For sure. And, I think on a practical level, I try to think about archetypes. How are those passed down, okay? I think on a practical level, you end up saying, well, they're passed down through culture, okay? But I think there is something about consciousness itself that we don't quite understand. Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, it's sort of mystical in a way. But I think there is something about consciousness in addition to culture, which propels these ideas down the line.
Well, he's saying that we're more connected than we realize at a deeper level.
I think so. I think that's why, like Steven Spielberg, the reason his movies are so popular is he's really got the archetypes down. I mean, it's good versus evil. I mean, in Star Wars, Darth Vader and his troops, they look like Nazis, don't they?
Same thing with the superheroes. They even deal with the Nazis in some of the X-Men movies.
Yes, very much so. So, if you can actually, people that advise actors and actresses on what roles to take, they usually advise the person to continue in the same archetype that people have gotten used to thinking of them. If you have someone that's always playing the hero, if they want to play a villain part, you have to be careful with that. They can play a villain, but it has to be a villain with redeeming values. So.
Now, we've been talking on the station about a show called Once Upon a Time. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Okay. We're hearing a noise in the background. If you can mute that or something.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Now, do you recommend that people build up their own dream dictionary rather than looking in a book and seeing that a snake means something and it always means that versus it'll probably be specific to that person?
Yeah, the snake thing, that's kind of a classic thing, you know, with Freud. He thought it was, you know, a phallic symbol, and it can be that, of course, but I usually see a snake as a sign of a transformation, simply because it's one of the few animals that completely sheds its skin, and so usually it's a sign of renewal. But it, you know, usually, like you say, symbols can mean several different things, and that's why it's a mistake. There's some symbols, you know, they call for certain responses, but especially if you're dealing with a person that you don't know that well, you had better check out what that symbol means to them. And when I'm uncertain, I have the person, you know, what does that symbol mean to you? And they will give me, and that will give me, you know, the idea of fitting it in with the rest of the dream. So.
Now, do you teach them in therapy how to interpret their own dreams?
Oh, you know, I think I think the teaching is doing the interpreting with them and working with them. I mean, they really how, you know, really how I learned to do this. A big part of it was with my clients, of course, but a big part too was I was through a personal analysis myself with a Jungian therapist, and you learn so much having it done to yourself. And the people, like I say, they more or less fed the rules back to me. I didn't even realize I was really using rules as such. So.
But over time, as they're going through this with you, are they picking up those skills?
Oh, very much so. Like I say, they will come in and tell me what a dream means, and you know, I won't disagree often. You know, especially if they've been with me for a while. You know.
So how can people begin to pick up these skills so they can be prepared if they're going to come see someone like yourself or perhaps another Jungian analyst?
I think reading Robert Johnson's book is a great starting place. You know, there's different authors that I like. Robert Sanford, Marion Woodman, of course Carl Jung. Carl Jung, I mean, the stuff is old, and it's written in a different kind of way, but if you can get past that, there's valuable things, of course. Freud's interpretation of dreams is maybe a good place to start. But usually when people read about dreams, they usually have more dreams too, and that's part of the reason I encourage people to read about dreams.
So don't worry necessarily about how hard it is to read, just try to read it.
Exactly, because your mind will work on it, you know.
Maybe even take the book to bed with you.
Sure. You know, they've actually done experiments where they take two groups of people and teach them a skill, teach them each group to do the same thing, and then I let, you know, one group go to sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then at the end of those 3 or 4 hours, then they test the people, and the people that have been sleeping always do better than the others, you know.
So definitely pay attention to your sleeping patterns and work on that as well.
Well, it's interesting, you know, the sleep cycle. There's basically 5 stages. It goes through these 5 stages, and the last stage is REM sleep, which is the dream state. REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement. They notice when people are dreaming, they rapidly move their eyes. And you go through those 5 stages every 90 minutes, okay? In the early stages of sleep, the deep stages of sleep predominate, and the light stages don't take up very much of it. But each time it cycles through those 90-minute cycles, the dream cycle gets longer and longer. So usually you've had your longest dreams right before you wake up.
I'd like to talk more about this, but we're coming up on a break. So can you share your contact information so people can reach you?
Oh, sure. I have a blog. It's drfoxblog.com. And also the book is at drstephenfox.com.
And on Amazon too?
And at Amazon. That'll take them right to the Amazon page.
And people can reach you on Facebook and Twitter?
Yes, I have a Facebook page. It's just under Stephen Fox. So
and they can reach you through email for questions as well?
Sure. It's LifeFD. That's life, and F as in Frank, D as in dog, at mail, mail.com.
And do you take clients just from within your local area, or can you talk with people via Skype or the phone?
I can talk to people Skype and phone. I like to have, that first session anyway with them face to face. But after that, then I will talk to them on the phone and the Skype too.
And are there any upcoming events that you'll be attending that people can see you at, or lectures, speeches you'll be giving?
I will be doing a podcast December 4th. It will be coming. I actually do the podcast early in December, and it will be coming out somewhat later. And it's at shrinkrapradio.com.
And what will that be about?
He interviews different dream interpreters. He interviews other people too, but he interviews a lot of people that interpret dreams. And he is a PhD psychologist, and it's quite interesting. I'm sort of amazed that I got invited to the people who are my idols. He is mostly interviewed on the show, so it's with a little trepidation that I'm going on the show.
Well, congratulations, and people can.
Thank you.
When will that be available for people to listen to?
It should be available by early January, I would think. So.
Okay. And it'll all be about interpreting dreams and how you can help people interpret dreams.
For sure.
Okay. If you have a question for Dr. Fox when we come back, you can reach us here at Awakened Radio by adding Awakened Radio to Skype, or calling us at 334-649-7204. And you can ask Dr. Fox a question of your own when we come back. You can also come to our chat room by coming to awakenedradio.net and clicking on the live chat tab. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next half of the show.
Won't catch us sleeping through the fight in life. We're all eyes open, showing our inside and light so bright. We are awakened. Come and join our love, it's so right. If you could feel what we feel.
At Awakened Radio Network, we're all about success. We know that working together is the perfect way for all of us to live the success lifestyle. That's what it is. It's a lifestyle. And to help our listeners move into 2014 knowing that they can live this life, we're opening up our airwaves to some of the best lifestyle teachers anywhere in the world. A day-long event where you, as the speaker, are spotlighted by our station manager, Donna Devane, the Barefoot Guru, who knows how to guide you to your best sharing. Check out our website and get all the details at awakenedradio.net. Look on the tab where it says Success 2014. Perhaps you and your message would be perfect for our December 1st, 2013 speaker event, where we give people the tools to do more than wish. We empower them to live success. I'd like to invite you to add Awakened Radio to your Skype or email Donna Devane at awakenedradio@gmail.com to find out more about this 9-hour speaker event. Let Donna Devane help you share your message of healing, personal empowerment, success, whatever it is that you're passionate about. This is the perfect opportunity for you to share with our listeners all around the world, December 1st, 2013, where we help people to do more than wish. We're going to give them the tools to live success. Join us, Awakened Radio, at awakenedradio.net.
Welcome to Simply Conversations. This show airs every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. Each week, we have a new conversation with a guest who will share their story with us about how they've changed or healed their own life. Listen to our discussion and be inspired. This show is brought to you by simplyconversations.com. Feel free to take part in our chat room, ask questions, and talk with our guests. Hello. We're back.
Hi.
And Stephen, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Sorry about the confusion. And we were talking about REM sleep, and that being the point at which people most can remember their dreams because it's the last section of sleep. So, can you recommend something for people to do when they wake up so that they can easily record or remember their dreams?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me that. What I recommend is, well, the first thing is, it's good to, if you have a notebook, to have that setting out, and even have it somewhere where you might glance at it, several times during the day, simply to remind yourself that you're trying to remember your dreams. The hardest thing to remember is to remember that you're trying to remember your dreams. But when you wake up in the morning, if you can get in the habit of laying there still for just 30 seconds and thinking if you have any dream images going through your head, instead of jumping up right away, once you stand up, you're in a different physical state than you were when you had the dream, and it will be harder to remember what the dream was. But the most important thing, of course, is to write down the dream as soon as you can. It doesn't matter how vivid the dream is. Usually, I mean, I've done that where I've said to myself, "Oh, that dream is so vivid, I will never forget it." And sure enough, you forget it within a couple hours. When you're laying there during those 30 seconds, if you can, put down 2 or 3 bullet points, I will call them. I can lose a dream on the way walking to the bathroom, actually. So if I can get 2 or 3 bullet points, like my mother's house, a fire, and a policeman, that will be enough usually to kick off the dream.
Now we have a question from the chat room, Stephen, and it's, what about horrible nightmares in children?
Horrible nightmares in children. In children, their dreams usually are more related to their fears. Okay, there is exception. Well, this isn't an exception. One type of dream, of course, is the post-traumatic stress dream. If something horrible has happened, it isn't so much a dream in that case as it is just a memory that's burned into their subconscious. But kids, they're working on their responses to fear, and this is where they learn how to calm themselves. Parents are teaching the child to calm themselves, and you end up using that throughout the rest of your life, actually. People that have panic attacks, what I'm finding is if you go back to when they were like 5 years old or so, they didn't have someone to calm them down when they were frightened at night. So
now, how can they soothe themselves? What about artwork and such?
That would be an outlet for sure. Yeah. I guess, the thing I try to do, I do meet with children every so often, and about 20% of my practice or so is kids. I once worked in a children's clinic for some years, and I find their fears tend to be more direct, okay? And usually, if you get them to talk about it, there's not... It's very much exaggerated, and there may not be much of a reality basis to that. If you can get the full story out of them, The thing with kids, what I found is that if they want to tell you something, you can't keep them from telling you that. And if they don't want to tell you something, there's no getting them to tell you that. So you've got to let it come out at their pace, but then you want to fully discuss it with them as much as you possibly can.
Okay. Now, as we're talking about dreams, what about recurring symbols? Do you pay any attention to those, Stephen?
Oh, very much. Carl Jung, who is the person I follow the most, he would say that some dreams are more important than others, and he called them big dreams. And a recurrent dream was almost always a sign that you were having a big dream, because you had probably run into a situation similar to situations you faced in the past where you tried to solve it and you couldn't really come to a satisfactory solution on it, and your subconscious keeps trying to throw up a solution, and for one reason or another we aren't taking the advice, or we aren't seeing the advice. And I do see dreams as doing that. I see dreams as, if you're fortunate, and most people do, have dreams that actually give them advice.
So the dream will come back again stronger the next time, bigger.
I say that to clients, that I really don't have to be that good at interpreting dreams in some sense, because if I miss it, don't worry, it will come back again until we do finally get it.
Now we have another question in the chat room, and it's a question about crying in a dream, and then no matter if the dream was silly or not, wanting to cry when you wake up?
Okay, so they're crying in the dream and they're also crying when they wake up.
Yes. I guess wanting to continue to cry, I guess wanting to release something when they wake up.
Yeah. You know, of course, you know, one of the major things in my book is that water is emotion, okay? And crying, you know, is tears, of course. And basically you're letting out emotion. And basically my thought with that would be dreams are usually, they're right at the cutting edge of they're pushing the envelope of what you're ready to accept, okay? And if you're crying in a dream, to me, that sounds like you're actually emotionally processing what is occurring in the dream. And then if you continue that when you wake up, I see that as a positive sign, because you're continuing the process, and it has broken through the consciousness where you can deal with it.
Now, what about waking dreams, Stephen?
Waking dreams can be useful. You know, this is the thing. You have to decide. If
what
it's
actually
been
is.
over. Yeah, you have to decide whether it's been influenced too much by consciousness, and by that I mean dreams frequently tell us what we need to hear, and conscious dreams might tell us more what we want to hear. You know, we can daydream of positive things that could happen or that we wish would happen. But you know, psychologists used to do projective tests. They don't do them so much anymore. But basically, you would hand a picture to the client or hand an ink blot to the client and have them tell you a story about it, essentially. And so, in a sense, you were having them produce dreams consciously. Okay, and it would give you some insight to what was going on in the background. But I think that's why I value dreams so much. I think they're sort of the ultimate projective personality test. You know, I could not invent a test that would tell me as much, you know.
Yes. Stephen, we have another question, and that's about dreaming and trying to wake up and not being able to.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You know,
I don't know
have
if that's
an
inception question or not, but...
Yes. You know, it's interesting you say that thing about inception, and my point of view on dreams very much agrees, and I think Jung would very much agrees with inception. They very much took a Jungian point of view, I think, with that. But, you know, I have clients report to me, you know, they're having a bad dream, and fortunately they were able to wake themselves up out of it, okay? You know, when you can't wake yourself up out of it, you know, my question would be, I don't have a definite answer for this, but my question would be, is your subconscious holding you there and making you look at something you don't really want to look at? That would be my question with that.
That would be a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, our dreams could be offering us the answers that we need. So what about when we start to integrate the solutions into our life? What kinds of tools can we work with to help with stress, for instance? Our dreams are talking about stress.
Usually dreams give fairly direct advice about how to reduce stress in your life. There's an archetype called the heroic masculine. Men tend to go more with actions. Women tend to go more with emotions in dreams. not absolutely so, but after thousands of years of culture, that's usually the way it falls out. And it seems to be an equal opportunity thing, whether the dreamer is male or female. Males tend to go with action, females tend to go with emotion. Now, the Jungians, they would make a big deal, make a big difference between whether the dreamer was male or female as to what a male or female meant in the dream. But I haven't really found that to be the case. And what was the question again? I could have got lost.
I guess the question was either I'm looking outside of the dream for some tools that a person might use for stress.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that the dream is telling us, oh, you have to do this. It's simply that perhaps the dream is talking about stress. It might offer a solution, but are there things that you normally recommend anyway?
Oh, well, this one thing I recommend, of course, is relaxation techniques. I also recommend meditation. And the interesting thing is, if people meditate more, usually they will have more dreams. So that tends to be more helpful too, So.
Stephen, do you teach meditation or offer ways for your clients to learn?
I go over, mindfulness training is kind of the thing that's popular now, and really they got that straight from the Buddhists. It's the most basic meditation, and that's usually the people I see. That's usually where they are. Is they're wanting to start some meditation. I'm not, of course, a total expert on meditation. I know I have some acquaintance with your tapes on. Is it Tonglen?
Tonglen, yes.
Yes. That was very interesting. I like to run across tapes like that and try the different techniques. But I think the Buddhists have so much to offer with meditation that, I don't consider myself a primary expert on that. And I would probably follow their lead along. So.
Now we have another question, Stephen, from the chat, and this time it's about a common thing happening in dreams. It's about teeth falling out.
Oh, yes. The common thread I've found with people losing teeth is in the most essential and basic, trying to get to the common denominator. What I've arrived at is that usually the dream is about the person has lost something very personal to themselves, and that the dream is using losing a tooth as a metaphor for that.
So pay attention and look around to what you've lost or given up.
Yeah. Dreams are very much metaphors. Losing a tooth. Freud had a wild explanation for losing a tooth, and it differed. It was very sexual, and it was different regarding whether you were a man or a woman. But to me it seemed far-fetched, and to me that you've lost something personal seems to be more on the mark, at least from the people I see.
Okay. Now, what about other support systems for people undergoing therapy or doing their own dream work? Should they be doing that as well?
Do you mean being involved in different therapies, or
finding some sort of other support groups or something to help them continue their process?
Yeah, I encourage all of that. I see that as a benefit. Frequently people I see are involved in AA. Substance abuse is an issue frequently. and I see myself as, working on the same. It's really interesting. I mean, Carl Jung was friends with Bill, who wrote the big book for Alcoholics Anonymous, and Jung thought that AA definitely addressed some things that psychotherapy could not deal with totally. He thought there was something very powerful about a group of people. I think at least 8 or 9 of the 12 steps directly involve spirituality. He thought that therapy could take you so far, and it was a vital so far, but there were some issues that he thought something else needed to be thrown in with it, and I think he saw substance abuse as one of those.
Okay. Now, what are some simple steps to begin noticing your own patterns so that they can start to work on them when they're not in therapy?
Noticing your own patterns. Frequently I have people, that's the issue, what the issue is. It's like I always get in these relationships and it always goes like this, and they tell me the story and they tell me the pattern, and usually it's a matter of tracing that back. What was the origin of that? And the heart of psychodynamic therapy is really that relationships that you had in the past, significant relationships, either a significant other, a parent relationship, something like that, it's going to affect your future relationships. And so you need to be aware of that so that you aren't just repeating, what has happened before. Freud very much talked about the repetition complex, and he basically thought that if something happened to you as a child and you were perplexed about it and couldn't figure out why that happened that way, to some extent you would be motivated to solve that question. I call it the nagging question. Having that.
And your dreams will be showing you this likely as well.
Yes, very much. I mean, that's very much the purpose of the. I mean, when I talk about the archetypes and the different characters that show up in dreams, I mean, there will be a predominance of one archetype or another. Some people, well, I'll give an example. A woman who she tended to be a little too dominant to the point that, she was totally dominant in the relationship. And if you looked at her archetypes, she had just about all of her archetypes. It was just a repetition of the heroic masculine over and over. And, the heroic masculine is usually good news. But, I mean, you can get too much of anything, can't you? So.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our show. Is there anything that you'd like the listeners to know about dreams that we haven't covered?
Well, the things that pretty much everything I have to say, not everything, but most of what I have to say about dreams is in my book, and I have written it to be for the educated public, and not necessarily educated so much as just well read, I guess I would say. I wrote it for like a college freshman level. I tried to get away from the psychology speak, I'll call it, the psychology babble, and bring it down to a form that people could use. And I also, there is a spiritual component to it. That's why I call it a Dream's Guide to the Soul, So, but I tried to make it practical and tried to make it something that would be interesting. But the main thing is that it would be useful to people.
And what should they know before they pick it up? They're in for an exciting read?
I think, what I've seen with people is that they're motivated to pay attention to their dreams. And like I say, the people, I'm so pleased, that's one of the reasons I'm so pleased with the book. So I literally have people coming up to me that I do not know that say, I had this dream and I think you will say this. And I'm so happy that the book is clear enough that yeah, they got it. So.
Okay, can you share your contact information with us again?
Yes, it's drstephenfox.com will get you to the book. drfoxblog.com will get you to my blog. My email is lifefd@mail.com. I think those are the main ones.
Those are the main ones. Okay, so if they have any dream questions, they can contact you with those methods.
Yeah, I would very much, if people want to go to my blog, drfoxblog.com, I'd be so happy to answer your questions, interpret your dreams. That would make me very happy. Nothing I'd rather do than interpret a dream, almost.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking your time tonight to come on Awakened Radio. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Dr. Stephen Fox, and you can get his book on Amazon and via the links that he gave you, and just search for Stephen Fox, and it'll come up on Amazon. Now, we have a few more minutes, so stay with us. We'll talk about our holiday events here. We're having some changes to our Thrive magazine, so you still have time until December 1st, I believe, to get in your new articles, art, or poetry for Thrive magazine, and we'll share your links back to your website and your bio in there, so you still have time to contribute to the next issue of Thrive magazine. If you have holiday-related topics that you've written about or would like to write about, please do share them with us. You can also make a donation to Awakened Radio by clicking on the donate button at the top of most of our screens. We're largely host and listener supported, so any amount that you can spare would be greatly appreciated. Again, we're not asking for your grocery money, just a way for us to continue to grow, and we thank those who've contributed in the past. If you'd like to be a sponsor here at Awakened Radio and sponsor this show or others, you can provide us with a 30-second spot, and we'll play it during a particular show. And once the show has been played, it'll be replayed at least once during the month and then archived. So minimally, your ads will be played 12 times during the month, and then again when people download it from the archives within iTunes and TalkShoe. And if you're on the go, you can also listen to us via TuneIn. Just type in TuneIn, download the app, and search for Awakened Radio. And it's a really neat way to be able to listen to us when you're out and about and away from your computer. And don't worry about the streaming. It works excellently. I love it. And I wish I could buy stock in TuneIn, but I don't think I can. So please do think of TuneIn, and there's other apps that we use that work with Android as well, I believe. So remember that you can definitely listen while you're on the go and not at your computer. And while we're talking about books, You can find my book, Your Life Counts, on Amazon. And, of course, it's all about working with your life path, your numerological life path, and learning to work with that as a tool in your life. Thanks for listening tonight. Please tune again next week for another episode of Simply Conversations. Thanks for joining us.